Who ever would have thought that our challenge of the homeless population could be hopelessly tied and linked to rent control? You know, sometimes there are ideas that sound really good, but end up with disastrous results. To illustrate my point, let me tell you about Maria and Pedro. Very nice, hardworking young couple. They lived in Boyle Heights. And when the recession came, it wasn't a recession for Pedro and Maria. They had been working 2 and 3 jobs. They had their children in a very good school. But when the recession came and property values plummeted, they had their opportunity. They were a little bit ahead, so they bought a 20-unit apartment building. They bought it pennies on the dollar. They saw this as finally they were going to have their piece of the American dream. Pedro said to Maria, with this apartment building, we can plan for our retirement. We can plan for our kids to go to college. I am so excited that we've bought this building. They were pleased at their goal being met. But unfortunately, one day, an inspector from the Systematic Code Enforcement Program of the City of Los Angeles knocked on their door. We're here to inspect your units. Pedro and Maria didn't mind at all. They had taken very good care of their building, so they let them in. After these inspectors went through 18 of their 20 units, they ended up getting a checklist that blew them away. What do you mean I have to replace the roof? Well, in that neighborhood, people had partial roofs of shingle and partial roofs of another material. It was very definitely the decor of that neighborhood. But they were told they had to replace the entire roof. Pedro and Maria had a 4-unit garage for some of their tenants and carports for the other ones. The inspectors went into the garage, finished garage, and told them to rip down the wallboard and replace it. There was no problem. It was just a little old. Pretty soon they went into the units and wrote up cracked grout, cracked caulking. Were there leaks? Pedro said. Oh no, we just don't like the way it looks, so you need to redo it. And by the way, these windows, they don't have permits on them. Pedro said, well, the windows were replaced years before I bought the building. The inspector said, it doesn't matter. You don't have permits on them. You have to go pull permits. You have to replace the windows, and you have to pay the fines. By the time all was said and done, there were $70,000 worth of problems that Pedro and Maria had. They didn't have $70,000. This was their investment. They tried to do the best they could with their buildings and maintain them, and they did. They followed all the steps in the California Civil Code, Section 1942.5, that denotes habitability. All the requirements of a landlord when they have an apartment building. They were in compliance. But where did all these other ideas come from? They didn't know. The only thing they could assume is it came from the inspectors from SCEP. Well, I'm sure it's not hard to figure out what happened to Pedro and Maria. Their building went into default. The bank wouldn't loan on it because there were citations against it. And pretty soon, all the good tenants left and only the bad tenants were there. Criminals came, squatters came, the building was completely taken over. And if you've ever heard the broken window theory, you know that once a building in a neighborhood has a broken window, there are many others in the neighborhood that follow suit. Pretty soon, there were 4 adjoining properties in the same place as Maria and Pedro's. What was going to happen? Well, a big developer came and bought the 4 adjoining properties, and they were going to tear everything down and build a new luxury building. On the one hand, the luxury building was lovely, but you have to ask, what happened to Pedro and Maria? What happened to their tenants? Well, the tenants were given their $20,000 relocation fee, and they went to find another apartment. Unfortunately, they lived beyond their means, and the $20,000 went within a year. At the end of the year, most of those tenants became members of the 46,000 homeless population in the city of Los Angeles. So is rent control, just cause eviction, overreaching ordinances, the regressive road to rent control? Yes, it is. Is it the regressive road to homelessness? Yes, it is. Is it the regressive road to the deterioration and ruin of our neighborhoods? Yes, it is. Stop these intrusive government inspections now. The risk is real. The time is now. Stand up now and stop the PRIP ordinance, because this is the first place where it starts. Contact your city council people. Contact the mayor. Tell them you don't want an overreaching inspection ordinance, because we know what the next steps are. Again, stop the regressive road to rent control.